I'm just very conscious. I very much focused on the offshore wind in my own commentary. I wasn't too sure whether it was a wider. I got an indication it was primarily that, but there were a number of questions about the onshore area. Senator Kine and others, and others asking about the wind guidelines or Derry Bryan. We are going to have to do a whole lot of work on onshore as well. We're not finished there. There's huge potential benefit in developing that for local use of that energy as well as for meeting our climate targets. Can I go through a number of the questions? The various senators raised it. I might start, if I can, on this issue of Borpenala. Senator McDowell raised that in terms of should we be looking at another vehicle, and I would be very reluctant to start recreating a new planning system or new organisation within that. I take his point that on Borpenala have a remarkable breadth of hugely important projects in front of them at the moment. I could go on. He mentioned 10-storey blocks, the metro, the DART Plus. I'm just thinking my transport brief alone, Bus Connects, Cork Metropolitan Rail, that's all before on Borpenala as we speak. And then before you look at housing and energy and water and health and education, all the buildings, our big project is in capital. I do believe that the legislation that the government is before, I think it's due to go now before the Joint Oireachtas Committee on the Environment, is very critical in the revision or update or modernisation of the 2000 Planning Act. Will actually resolve a lot of the difficulties that have been there. And it doesn't fundamentally throw the baby out of the bathwater. We are sticking with the same environmental rights, access to justice rights, but we do need to take a piece of legislation. That part of the problem for Borpenala and others is that that legislation had been amended so many times that it often was contradictory, I'm told, by expert lawyers, and that it did need this consolidation, which I hope would help not only in Borpenala, but developers and also local communities engage in the planning system. And yes, that will require massive upscaling, in my mind, of Borpenala, and indeed, I think a number of more further judicial appointments. It's not just in Borpenala. My understanding is the court's ability to progress of these issues are some of the constraints that we have. And included in that, the development under this government to develop a new environmental courts, which can start straight away, in my mind, is some of the examples of the resourcing we're going to have to provide. And in Borpenala have been provided those resources. They are employing marine experts. It's not easy to get. There's a limited resource. If any child is looking at CAO at the present moment in time, I would recommend look at ecology, environmental studies. That's where all the employment is at the moment. You cannot get people with expertise in that area. So, but we are scaling up on Borpenala. And Mara, a number of senators raised the issue of Mara. Just to reassure people, that's up and running in effect. We have 20 people working there, and new people, CEOs being interviewed as we speak. I think almost pretty much. New chair appointed last week by government. So Mara is going to hit the ground running. It has to. And I believe it is the right institutional structure. In many ways, on the offshore wind side, Mara, in the consenting role it will do, and the ability to provide a lot of the pre-planning and environmental analysis and so on, that will, on the consenting side, will help, I think, when it comes down to the final decision making. So Senator McGann was asking, is the civil service slowing it down? No. We had a meeting yesterday, my civil servants here, who will take part in this task force we have, which has been in place for a year on offshore wind development. In delivering what we need to do in climate, we're focusing on the next 3 years, and these task forces, we have one in sustainable mobility, one in heat, but the one in offshore has been up and running first and is most active now. And absolutely, the laser focus is on delivery, particularly in the next 3 years. And the way that these task forces work, we learned from COVID and Brexit that you get away from sometimes that bureaucratic glue within our public service when you bring different government departments together and agencies and outside expertise, and you engage in stakeholder engagement on an ongoing basis, so it's transparent, it's public, and it's got tight timelines. We have project management teams in place with outside project management expertise, which see in each of the areas of responsibility Gantt charts which show you have to deliver this month, this month, this month. And it's an incredibly tight timeline. We have no room to spare time-wise because we are in a race. But that's what's happening. And the job of the political system, in my mind, this House, the other House, the Dáil, and also myself as Minister and my team, is to hold those teams of public servants to account to make sure we deliver. And that is happening. The number of senators, I won't go down through each one, mentioned the issue of ports, and you're right, that's probably one of the tightest supply constraints. And it's true that the only port currently, well, a lot of our ports are already involved in deploying wind turbines, the likes of Galway. Those turbines that were out in Connemara came in through Galway port, and our ports are skilled in terms of importing, distributing, and a lot of the first projects for our ports will be deployment assembly. As we move into the really large offshore floating, I expect we will move into much more industrial manufacturing, fabrication opportunities. That would take slightly longer, but we do have to get our ports ready for deployment in these phase 1 projects. And again, there the key issue will be getting MARA to do some of the consenting on the foreshore licensing in a timely manner that allows the deployment happen. Senator Boylan was asking about kind of vessels. There's constraints in every sector. There's constraints in cabling, in foundation making, in turbine manufacture, in shipping, in all these, as well as in ports capacity right across Northwest Europe and indeed abroad. And a lot of the companies are global, so that they're providing, for one market or another, and that's why we have to be quick. I think we have the right system in place. I think our ORES 1 structure was, what I heard from the industry coming back was, yes, you got it right, you broadly the right provisions in place to allow us to compete with international other locations, and the more certainty we have around this politically and in terms of the planning system, I believe we will attract those resources. Senator Chambers is concerned about the west of Ireland not being in our thoughts, and far from it. The first place you'd like to see it developed is because that's where the strongest resource is. And indeed in the phase 1 projects, we have projects in the Scourge Rocks in the west. That new chair I mentioned of MARA is a proud Mayo man, as proud as you could get. So it's not as if the system is going to be not looking to develop in the West. But the critical issue for us will be, I think Senator Dolan was asking, wasn't it, in terms of where are we in the SPAs, SACs. I'm reassured by Minister Noonan that yes, we will have for the phase 1 projects all the necessarily planning information around the designation of those areas in place to assist the projects through, to assist the planning system in developing it. There's a lot further more work needs to be done in the south and west, particularly in terms of baseline data around cetaceans, birds and others. And that work has to be done in the time that this Gantt chart of what needs to be in place for us to develop. That's the key constraint. If we're in Mayo, we're concerned about getting the investment and so on. Well, it's the underlying analysis of the environmental data and the sharing of data is going to be the most important. I will leave it on that, the West's awake note. Thank you very much.